Hi,
Hello,
Sissy.
how are you?
Good. Good.
Is
Just hanging out.
Cynthia feeling better?
Yes, she is. Thank you for asking. Yes, much, much better. Much, much better.
Good.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was kind of hit and miss last weekend, but much, much better. She's
Mm.
upstairs baking beer bread right now.
Beer
Beer
bread.
bread.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's
Hello, Joanna.
Hello.
hi, Joanna.
Hello.
Sorry it
Sorry about
wasn't
the
flying
whole
for
host.
you.
Yeah, we'll have to straighten it out because they're going to want a verification code anytime I host outside you, it looks like. So
Okay.
I would have wanted to host, but it didn't work out. So hello, everybody so far.
Hello.
So I heard you talk
Hello.
about Cynthia. How's she doing?
Much better.
Yeah. There we go.
Much better. She's been since the steroids wore off, she's been sleeping better.
Oh,
So that's also good.
can everybody hear me?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
great.
Mhm.
I
It
can.
works. You guys are soft. Let's see.
Hmm.
Maybe that will help. Somebody say something.
Something.
Hi.
Okay,
Hello.
that's better. Thank you. Sorry, I was a little rushed this morning. I actually decided to do grocery shopping this morning, not knowing what it was going to be like this afternoon. So
Right.
Well, I
I
was
was a
just
little
rushed
rushed.
from my work, so you're in good company. Yeah.
You did what?
Oh, I was distracted by my work, so yeah, I'm kind of late popping in, but just managed to rifle my food together in the moment. So yeah.
Shall we wait a couple more minutes for anyone else?
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Let's see. I guess it was Bob that was the only other one last week,
Mhm.
and he's commonly late, so
Yeah, we
there's
might
no.
get Carla today. She's
I hope
feeling better
so.
too.
Good.
She's feeling better too. She's
Oh, is she sick
still on
too?
oxygen.
Oh, of course. Yes, she's been on oxygen.
Meanwhile, the weather is looking like this might be the only church I get online this week. It looks bad for
Mhm.
Sunday.
Yeah, Doug, we may have to talk about Plan B about Sunday. I'd like to get there. We'll
Well,
talk.
let's stay on the line after we finish
Yeah, I
with this,
figured.
and we can have a conversation about that. Mm.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I've showed this to you guys yet, but oop, the blurry
That's weird.
background defeating me. There we go.
Yeah. I got the book last week. I hope I can actually attend.
Oh, I hope so too.
Um,
Well, I think you showed it to council, didn't you?
I think so. Yeah, but boy, I just got finished with chapter 2, which is for this Sunday, and I'm blown away. And I love that it's data driven. It's not just someone sharing their mind, but
Wow.
it's got incredible charts and almost on every page
Ooh.
in that chapter.
So good insight into what's going on, huh?
Well, in this particular case, part of what this chapter is looking at all of the things that could be possible causes for people disaffiliating from churches.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them hold water and some of them don't so much, which is interesting. Because a lot of
not
some
just
of the
one thing.
theories.
It's a whole bunch of things that may contribute. It's very individual in the end. Oh, look who's somebody's coming.
I think it's Carla.
So it
Oh,
says Michael. Oh, Mike McIntyre.
Mike,
Yeah.
yeah. I never thought of Mike as Michael.
Yeah. Yeah.
Carla, is that you?
Yay!
Yeah.
Good.
Boy,
Hi,
it's good to see you.
thank you.
How
Good
you
to see all of
feeling?
you.
Great to see you.
How
Thank
you
you.
doing? How you feeling?
I'm feeling better all the time. It's just I still have stuff in my lungs that I've got to get out.
Yeah.
Mm.
How's
Yeah.
Cynthia?
About the same.
Sorry.
No. She's trying to clear her lungs too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Cynthia have to wear oxygen?
Not at the moment,
Okay,
but
good.
we're
Tell her to
taking,
be grateful.
well, yes, and we're taking life in very small steps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, shall we
Fortunately,
begin then?
sure.
Since I guess I get to start this, I don't know, group? With the group? Hello, everybody.
I,
Yep.
So this week's Living the Question is this all there is?
Yeah.
And I decided to just start with, that could be an emotional laden question, just by asking the question. So I was interested in, when you just hear the question, what emotions or thoughts come to mind
Mm. Mm.
when someone asks you, is this all there is?
I guess it makes me think, are they asking about it I mean, there's more than one approach, but is this the only life you get? And after this, are we just non-existent, bound
Mm.
into unconscious oblivion? Then
Wow.
there's just thinking of in terms of what you've got in your life. You might have all the things in the world that anyone could want, and yet you don't feel satisfied.
Mhm.
Um,
I think that's a great parsing of the question. I think there might be even more kind of facets to that question.
sure.
I like those two.
I never thought about it like that.
Hold on, my headphones are kind of, okay, how about now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Sure.
Well, if the headphones aren't working,
Yeah.
dispense with them for now. Not like we're doing anything against HIPAA.
I also, for maybe this is kind of a variation on one of your themes there, Ken, but I also think about when I look at what feels like the transience of life, or how ephemeral it is, that, yeah, is this all there is? Is there something beyond what I can, the empirical things I can see and touch that are part of my day?
And it could also be based on how people ask that, the tone, is this all there is, or
Mm.
just like you put it. My automatic emotion was a bit of depression for just a split second. But it really, for someone, it could also be opportunity to think about what else there might be. Maybe you're in a fork in your road, and this is a good way of deciding if there's, more to your direction. Any other comments on the question itself?
Joanna, do you think, so there was a movie that it was called this, I think it was called As Good as It Gets, isn't that
I
a
was,
Jackson movie?
yes, I
And
was
so
just thinking of that.
is that, do you think of that as a synonymous kind of question? I mean, would it be the same kind of tone? Like, this is as good as it gets, or is this all there is? You know, I kind of see them very similar.
That's actually what I was thinking when I saw the question. This is actually not my question. This is a question Doug and I chose to put out there, but it's not actually something I thought of on my own. So, but when I heard it, Sissy, that was the first thing that came to mind is Jack Nicholson's "Is this as good as it gets" to a room full of people waiting for therapy? You know, basically is the context in which she asks the question.
Well, I
Uh,
don't know. Oh, I'm sorry, Joanna, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead, Carla.
Well, I was just, I mean, this is real recent, but last couple weeks ago when I was laying in the hospital and my blood pressure was 40/20,
Oh,
I kind of thought, is this it?
Oh,
oh,
Because I didn't know if I was going to make it or not.
yeah.
40/20.
That's not good.
That is a miracle. You are sitting in front of us for someone that works at a hospital. Wow. So you were thinking yourself, I mean, you really were feeling like this might be the end.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
what were feelings or thoughts going through your mind in response to wondering?
Um, I don't know. I was so tired. I
Hmm.
just kind of thought that and I said, well, if this is it, that's it. That's the way it is.
Hmm. Almost like I hear this a lot. It is what it is. I hear that a lot in a hospital setting, interestingly. Almost like that is the way of countering a difficult situation. Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's almost like asking the question, is this all there is almost responding with, well, it might be it. This is what it is.
Yeah.
And this actually is a good tag into our scriptures because our scriptures kind of respond to that. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about before we get into the scripture based on the question itself? Does someone want to read the Ecclesiastes book, chapter 3, verse 9 through 14? Which is after, well, I guess if you're looking at it in a book, it's after Psalms. It's book of wisdom.
I don't have the Old Testament here. I've just got the New, so I won't read it.
I can read it if no one else has an access.
I will. Verse 9
Okay.
through what? 14?
9 through 14,
Okay.
chapter 3.
What does the worker gain from his toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on men. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the hearts of men, yet they cannot fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for men than to be happy and do good while they live, that everyone may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all his toil. This is the gift of God. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing takes from it. God does it so that men will revere him.
What chapter was it? I'm sorry, I'm not.
Chapter 3 in Ecclesiastes, verses 9 through 14. It's right after, for every purpose under heaven, there is a time for. It's right after what we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
It's the verses actually after what we're familiar with.
Yep, there it is.
So is there to you an indication that the writer, who is considered, quote, the teacher, is sitting in this question and pondering responses from reading the verses?
So the
I think
question
so.
being, what does the worker gain from his toil?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is there an indication from these verses that the writer of the Ecclesiastes versus the sitting in the question and trying to respond as someone who has faith in God, in what does that mean? And that therefore writing the response about what does it mean? What does life mean if this is all there is, or if there is more? What do you think is an indication this person might be sitting in that question?
Well, given that there's this repeated refrain throughout the book about all this vanity or futility, as one translation puts it. He sounds like a pretty world weary guy who's kind of discouraged, and then he's trying to convince himself to carry on. I saw there's nothing better that a man should enjoy his work, for that is his lot. Who can bring him to see what will be better after him? That comes a little later. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I may as well carry on.
Ah,
It's a
so
pretty
can you
interesting.
interpret this passage as someone who was world weary?
Yeah, he's kind of discouraged about the state of the world and not sure about what's going to happen. I mean, that's the impression I get. He's not exactly Mr. Positive.
I see now, reading it out loud, I felt like this person was really positive.
Well, she chose one passage which has a more positive slant, but there are some others that he sounds pretty down.
Seems like he bounces around a little bit.
Yeah.
Emotionally, and even in these verses.
If we go to the very next section after yours, it talks about even where there seems to be justice, there's wickedness. He finds the negative in various places.
What I do notice, though, and this is my translation, which is my favorite, which is the NRSV updated edition. Verse 11 has been translated as, "He has made everything suitable for its time." And when I first read that half verse, it almost sounded like we were all made for the times we are in, even if they frustrate us, or even if we respond negatively, or not sure what to do with our times. But it's an interesting idea that, God knew us before we were born. Were we made for the times we're in? Is there a reason we are here in this time because of what we can offer?
And then the next one I find hopeful in verse 12, so that I know that there's nothing better for men than to be happy and do good while they live, that everyone may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all his toil, so that our purpose, that we want to be happy, we want to do good, we want to make sure that everybody has enough to eat and drink and find satisfaction in work and life. It's like, to me, that seems optimistic.
For the fate of the sons of men and the fate of beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. Is that positive enough for you?
Well, one of the authors I was reading about Ecclesiastes actually said there is a focus of death. That one of the ideas behind Ecclesiastes is a focus on the fact that eventually we all pass. And so therefore, what are we doing here now?
Hmm.
And I
And
understand
that,
that.
that may be what those verses are about. And certainly the one that Sissy just read sounds like, let's eat and drink and be merry while we can.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You see, I don't know why I didn't interpret it that way. I interpreted that, we strive to be, I guess I thought of it more globally, that we want people to be happy. And that I thought that was a charge, that part of our responsibility is to make sure that basic needs are met for everybody.
Hmm.
And that's part of the doing good, that we want that basic need taken care of first, and then striving toward happiness for everybody in the work that they could do.
And see, I kind of locked into the phrase, do good while you're here on earth, and your life is meant to help others. It's not just eat, drink, and be merry, but it's to make things more positive in your world.
No matter what your fate afterwards is, concentrate on
but
today.
I mean, that's kind of how I try to live. Is my purpose in life is to do good, to help others, and just do the best that I can.
And there is that line that Jesus gave, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself.
Yep.
The passage about God, so God has done this in verse 14. I know that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added nor anything taken from it. God has done this so that it should all stand in awe before him. This reminds me of now I realize this is not Paul's letter, but it is in Acts, it's considered Paul's voice, or in the voice of the idea that we were made to connect with God. In both of the Ecclesiastes and Acts, I found that. And I'm wondering, sorry, I can't get cool enough. If we're made to sit and live in a question of, is this all there is? What does that mean for people of Christian leanings, who, as the book Living the Questions will say, it faithing instead of having faith, that you're actually acting faith? Like, Sissy and Carla said, doing good. What would that mean in response to that question? Is this all there is? So how do we respond as Christians who are faithing, who are exercising faith?
When
Put your
somebody
thoughts
asks
into,
us, how do we respond, you mean?
Yeah.
I think you put your thoughts into actions.
So how long do we sit in a question before we decide how to respond and act?
Yeah, good question.
It's not easy for us to live in questions without wanting to act on them. I know I'm certainly there. I heard a couple other voices at the same time, Carla. Was anybody else?
I kind of feel like we're engineered to ask that question. Is this all there is? But I think your question's interesting, Joanna, because I don't think you can sit in that space asking, is this all there is, for a long time. You know, there are things that then confront us. I have to get up and go to work,
Yeah.
or my dog needs to go out, or
My wife needs my attention, or my spouse needs
my spouse
attention.
needs my attention.
Yeah.
I've got to use the restroom. There are all these ways. My neighbor is sick. What do I do about that?
Hmm.
Or I'm passing a homeless person on the street. What does that mean for me? Am I happy with the way the world is? Well, sometimes you get moved and you have to do something about it. And so that's the question, is this all there is? Seems to have an answer, which you all have said, and that's might be time to do something.
Hmm. Don't you think there's an interesting connection to this question and the idea that I was just watching, I didn't watch the whole thing. Everybody remember the movie Oh God?
Yeah.
George Burns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
you
John
know,
Denver.
and John
Yeah.
Denver. Where, they confront the age-old question we're still asking, which is, why doesn't God do something about the way the world is? And George Burns' response is, I already gave you everything you need. And it's about wanting to, it's about the will. And so I'm wondering, it feels like there's a connection between almost sitting in a moment of overwhelm to why the world is the way it is, and is this all there is? Almost being careful not to get into a state of victimhood. Why isn't God helping us? Why isn't God doing anything? When really, like we've talked about, the natural inclination might mean, what is God asking of me? What is the good I am meant to do in response? But I think you're right, Doug. It's hard to just sit in this question without thinking that if I don't do something, things are going to go to hell in a handbasket, or at least be part of a community that helps
So
feel
Joanna,
like we're doing something. Yes, Sissy.
so in like verse 14, I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it and nothing taken from it. I mean, that particular line to me that part I would say seems almost defeatist. Like it's like, well, okay, it's almost like nothing I can do because it's already there and can't add to it, can't take away from it. So like that to me seems like you would become complacent. And then when it says God does it so that men will revere him, that line I don't understand. So like your question, I'm feeling like, well, maybe part of it is that we do need to take action, after trying to discern what it is we're supposed to do so that everyone would have basic needs met and can be happy. But what if one's discernment is so different than, say, another Christian's discernment in terms of action? Then we're at odds then of what God is calling us to do. How do we struggle with that? And I'm thinking like specific example, like say the immigration issue. What if my discernment from God is we need to help because that's what God would call us to do. Christ would want to welcome. And someone else who's a Christian says, no, we need to close our borders because that's, we can't take care of everybody. Two different actions.
I suppose
Yeah.
it really doesn't. It depend on what kind of what people's worldview is coming from, what their own experiences is coming from. It's hard for me to be able to speak for someone else's worldview unless I ask where are you coming from in your approach? Because I agree, there is definitely could be two different Christian approaches to action or non-action. But to be honest, I think of 14 as the response to why isn't God doing anything about the way things are? You have everything. And the idea is, are you going to come from a place of, are we willing to help each other? Or are you coming? I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm just from my own experience and understanding. If we decide there's not enough, then that's one approach. If we decide there is enough, that's another approach to action. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, part of what I think about verse 14 is when we participate with God in what God is doing, what we do endures.
Mm. Can you say more, Doug?
Well, for whatever reason, and I think this is mysterious, God seems to like collaborating with us. I don't know why. I think at least I'm very flawed. Why would God want to work with me?
We all.
Oh, what? Or why would God want to work with any of us? And still, God seems to choose that to accomplish his purposes. And so that's part of why I read this very hopefully. This particular verse very hopefully is if I am as best I can tell, participating with God in bringing more grace to this world and being a source of kindness and hospitality in a world that is often cold and unfeeling. I think God and I are together on that. And whatever I do, even if it's something simple, Jesus said, if you offer a cup of water to one of the least of these, then we're encountering him in a way. And so even that little thing endures. There is nothing wasted. That kindness will bear fruit. I don't know how, but since God is in it, something mysterious and wonderful is going to come of what we are doing. I think the tricky piece you alluded to, Sissy, is how do you discern where God is working or how God wants to work? And I don't think that's an easy answer. And I think each of us has to answer that for ourselves. So on the one hand, yes, it makes me feel very positive about the direction that we could go. But on the other hand, it makes me kind of not get too prideful that I know that answer, trying to go back to God again for direction. So it makes me very humble at the same time as it gives me great confidence. Do I really know what God wants? Maybe sometimes I get good glimpses, but maybe it's bigger or different than I'm imagining. So that's how I see the positive here, but also the maybe don't think you know everything as you're thinking about this. I don't know that's one way that I've read this. I don't know if that connects with you all at all, or if there are other bits to kind of go around that.
I certainly will. Go ahead, Ken.
Just we may never have that answer in this life. We may not know what good we're doing, but there's you can take the George Bailey approach. You don't know just what the value of your life is. So something you did has made an effect. It's a wonderful life.
Yeah.
And then there's a line from a song by Jackson Brown that between the time you arrive and the time you go, there may be a reason you are alive, but you'll never know.
Wow.
Yeah, a powerful line. I love that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's great.
Yeah. So.
Well, the humbling part is for me as well as you can have all the divinity study you want in your background, and you're still wrestling with how to collaborate with God, how to team with God sometimes. Really doesn't matter what your background is. I'd like to go ahead and have someone read Acts because it just adds upon our conversation about responding to what is life, or is this it is what we see in front of us. Would someone like to read Acts chapter 17, verses 19 through 28? Or to be honest, it could either just be 22 through 28.
The famous speech in Athens, yes. I can read a little of it.
Okay.
All right. So Paul, standing in the middle of the Areopagus, said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious. For as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I found also an altar with this inscription, 'To an unknown God.' What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in shrines made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all men life and breath and everything. And he made from one every nation of men to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their habitation, that they should seek God in the hope that they might feel after him and find him. Yet he is not far from each one of us, for in him we live and move and have our being." Want to go further?
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Immediate response? What sticks out?
Well, you hear "do good" over and over again.
Carlos, hone in on the good. I love it. Sounds like Luke is saying that, or putting in Paul's mouth, that we were made for God so that we may search for God. And because we are somehow living in the being of God, so that the response to "is this all there is as long as we live and move and have our being with God, maybe it's enough." if we continue to feel that, or search for it. That's my response. Who else has a response?
Mm. So
The
it
verse.
feels, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm asking a tongue-in-cheek question. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, I was going to say, verse 27 here in Acts sounds a little bit like part of verse 11 in Ecclesiastes.
Hmm.
He has also set eternity in the hearts of people, and yet they cannot fathom what God has done from beginning to end in Ecclesiastes. And then in this
Hmm.
passage, verse 27, God did this so that people would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each of us. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it almost says word for word in 26, and he allotted the times of their existence, as it does in 11. He's made everything suitable for its time.
I didn't make that connection. That's cool.
Say that one more time, Joanna.
So in 26 in Acts, it said part of it, the phrase, and he allotted the times of their existence and the boundaries of the places where they would live. In verse 11 in Ecclesiastes, it says he's made everything suitable for its time, a sense of past and future in their minds.
Wow.
So time is an interesting focus in both of these.
Yeah.
Where are we at in time?
Hmm. So I interpreted that in Acts that was determining God knew exactly when you were going to die. That's
I mean,
I mean,
Ah,
like a predetermination, like I knew, and so it's like, okay. So I mean, I like that particular passage. I'm thinking, is that advocating that we're predestined already, and it almost doesn't matter what we do because there's predestiny. Whereas the one in Ecclesiastes, I think when they mentioned time, it was more like the era, like the time of the world, what was going on, that we were made for whatever skills or things we did was appropriate for that time in history, not necessarily like a time of life. Whereas Acts, I did think of that he didn't, doesn't it say he knows our time? And I guess I thought that was our lifespan. And he determined the time set for them. And I guess that I interpret that as lifespan.
Oh, interesting. I think we're fortunate in being Congregationalists that we get to keep searching and it's okay. So even Acts says, perhaps fumble about for him. I love the fact that we get to fumble about and it's okay to fumble about in search.
Yeah, my wording, feel after him, it reminds me of a blind man trying to find his way through the dark. or
Yeah,
even
yeah.
Hmm.
when the power is out, and even we who have eyes can't see. It's yeah, we're in the dark, Nicodemus style.
Yeah, the message translation says, so we could seek after God and not just grope around in the dark, but actually find him.
Hmm.
Play hide and
Okay.
seek with
Oh.
us. He's not remote, he's near.
Mhm.
But I liked your analogy. I think the message reflects what you were just saying, Ken.
Groping in the dark. Anyway.
What's interesting about that, even, it is certainly scientifically supported that when one is blind, other senses increase. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
because one is blind does not mean they no longer have tools. That there's always tools within which we can grope and find God, even if it's not through the sense of sight.
Hmm.
Talk about our physical senses, but
Yeah.
we may be endowed with spiritual senses, the sense of somehow being aware that there is something more. There is something beyond all this. If this is not all there is, we have a sense that there is something more, a sense of the divine.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Though we don't always believe in it.
So in verse 25, I think it is, in my version, and this is an act, says, and he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything, because he himself gives all men life and breath and everything else.
Hmm.
Does that kind of give us a pass to do anything in that line?
Sorry.
Because
Just struck me.
I mean, how do others interpret that? It's like God's not served by human hands? What we're not supposed, because
Well, I think the context is one of the things to pay attention to here,
okay.
Sissy.
And what am I missing here?
They're standing in the Areopagus, which has shrines to all of these gods that are there.
Okay.
And their sensibility of gods and goddesses and the divine was that they weren't able they 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 weren't able to help themselves. They needed they needed worshipers to bring food to them. They needed uh,
Mhm.
they needed
Okay.
worshipers um, to fulfill them. But part of what Paul is saying is God doesn't need us to be fulfilled. God doesn't need us to make him complete. In a sense, really, we need him to make us complete. So the sense of the divine is flipped in Paul's understanding. Rather
Okay.
than us serving gods who are incomplete without us, we have a God who is already complete, and we are simply being uh, being the helpers.
Ah,
Does he?
that-
And so then I come back to Esther, right? Because Esther's not sure she's going to be able to change the path of destruction, of genocidal destruction for the Jews, and she talks with Mordecai, who says, if you don't do this, salvation's going to come some way. God is still going to rescue his people. But who knows that you were put in just this place for just such a time as this? I think that's interesting for us. That comes back to the time connection that we were talking about. We're each in our lives in this time and this space, I think, for a reason. Do I know what that reason is? I don't know all the reasons that each of us is here. But this sense of not that we're completing God, but that we're empowered by God to make a difference where we are. So the contrast is between idols of wood and stone and metal that are unable to do for themselves, and a God who is more than able in our lives and our world. Doesn't really have to have us, but it works. It works better if we are paying attention. Who knows that we were created for such a time as this? I don't know if that's what you were getting at, Joanna.
I'm just going along with the flow. I like the flow. It seems to me that we keep circling back to the time aspect. It actually, for me, it makes things a little hopeful if both Ecclesiastes and Acts are referring to the fact that we may have been made for our time, no matter what time period there is before death. But the fact is we exist. We're here. We're made for collaborating with God. We're made for searching. But again, I'm always in the mode that I do want to answer that question rather than live in it, which was the point of living in the question. It's hard for me to live in this question. I want to answer it. I want to I think there is something to be said for being in this time.
Yeah, while we don't yet have the answers, we have to be patient in the process. That's the hard part.
Mm. Yeah, it's hard not to answer a question like that.
Hard to be comfortable with mystery, but in the end, we need to.
Yeah, good point, Ken. It is hard.
Another song, Iris Dement, "Let the Mystery Be."
We got about 5 minutes. Any final thoughts from our discussion? Any challenges for the Bible coordinator, Bible study coordinator, for what this means for our next question, which is next week? How does God communicate?
Oh, well, that fits in with this question, doesn't it?
Certainly.
Oh.
It almost makes you want to just have that Bible study in the next hour, at least for me. Not that I'm asking us to do that at all. Yeah. But it does seem to have a natural transition to that question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting.
If this is all there is, what the heck has God up to, and how does he tell us?
Yeah.
How's everybody feeling about the hour and is everybody still uncomfortable with the question?
It just raises more questions.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Is anybody supposed to be comfortable with questions like this?
Well, yeah. There is something to be said that I've read plenty of books for the ministry that says that being uncomfortable is the point.
Afflict the comfortable, right?
What's
Right,
that?
right.
Isn't
And
that
comfort
the
the
line,
afflicted.
the job of the prophet and the
Oh.
journalist to
Yeah.
afflict the comforted
I conflict the
comfortable.
comfortable.
and comfort the afflicted?
Well, I appreciate everybody showing up.
It's a great
Thanks for
discussion.
doing this.
Great discussion, Joanna. Thank you for leading us through.
You're welcome. I love these passages for the meat they offer us to chew upon. So thank you all. I consider this the end unless somebody wants to bring something up at the very end.
You want to pray us out,
I
Joanna?
will be happy to pray us out. If you're talking about me, Doug. Yeah. All right. No, I'd be happy to. Thank you. I forgot to pray us in, so I'll pray us out. God, thank you so much for helping us have a moment in our day to center upon you and your word. It's good for us to continue in our busyness to remember whose we are and how we connect and how you connect with us, so that we always may be searching for and finding the communication with which you are so lovingly and kindly willing to do as your children. Be with us the remainder of the week and keep us safe on the roads, wherever we go, so that we may get where we're going in safety. In Jesus' loving name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joanna.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, dear friends.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
So are we meeting again at 1:30? That's okay.
Different
See you in a little bit.
address.
Is this the same?
Yeah.
It's the same Zoom address?
Nope, it'll be different.
It'll be different. Did you put it in our
I
email?
emailed it to you yesterday.
Okay, then it's in there. It's in the number of texts.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks,
See you in a
Carla.
little
We'll see
bit,
you at
Carla.
1:30.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.
I just had the one question.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize we had a different thing for 1:30.
Yep.
Besides the hosting, which we can talk about on Monday, what happens if we're all, I mean, I don't mean to be morbid, but there is a reality of, 18 inches for some people